What unfolds when the head of a fast food empire goes incognito to take on a fryer shift and witnesses a shift lead berating new hires as if they were insignificant? Zeke Foster lingered outside the back entrance of store number 3 out of 5 locations that his late father had developed from the ground up. Zeke inherited the chain 2 years ago, and since then the growth has been rapid, excessively swift. He had introduced additional tiers of oversight, a district manager, and new protocols. Yet an unsettling feeling began to emerge. Sales remained consistent, yet the turnover was harsh. HR has noted an increase in the number of new employees leaving within a week at this location. Lacks a clear rationale, only ambiguous exit interviews, a toxic environment, and a sense of disrespect. The experience of management was challenging. Zeke preferred certainty over uncertainty. He had to experience it firsthand. He fiddled with the rough beard he had cultivated for the ruse, straightened the name tag that proclaimed Illy, and rapped on the door. The kitchen door swung open, releasing a rush of fryer heat, while a young man in a headset hardly glanced up. "Are you the new guy?" the kid asked. "You have arrived later than expected." "Apologies," Zeke remarked as he removed his hoodie. "I got disoriented on the bus." "Whatever. My name is Nate. Go have a conversation with Alicia. She'll guide you through the process." Zeke nodded and made his way across the slick, greasy tile floor toward the kitchen. It was a whirlwind of activity, commands soaring through the air, sizzling sounds erupting, and voices clashing in a cacophony. He noticed a young woman in her 20s shouting at a younger girl by the fry station. "Absolutely not. I meant to say put down the fries, not your intelligence." "How challenging is this?" she broke. The young woman, just shy of 18, recoiled slightly. "I'm making an effort. Effort alone won't suffice. This kitchen isn't suited for those who weep at the sound of raised voices." Zeke eased his pace, his gaze sharpening. "Alicia, the shift lead as per the schedule he had examined earlier. She's in training," he asked Nate softly. "Indeed. This week we've experienced the departure of about 3 individuals. Alicia has a knack for quickly assessing people." Zeke maintained an expressionless demeanor. "Indeed." Alicia pivoted, her gaze settling on him, and who might this be, understood more deeply. "Illy," Zeke said, reaching out with an open hand. She refrained from shaking it. "Excellent, yet another individual lacking in sophistication. Have you ever operated a fryer?" "Not quite. Statistics. Simply remain in that position. Please refrain from touching anything until I give the go-ahead. We have fallen behind already." Zeke nodded and took a step back, suppressing the impulse to offer a correction. He wasn't here to show off. He was present to gain insight. In the span of 3 hours, Zeke observed Alicia reprimanding 3 distinct trainees. One left before lunch. The girl from earlier, Maddie, burned her hand on the oil and was told to toughen up or leave. She selected the second option. Glimmers of sorrow in her gaze. Zeke felt a knot in his stomach. By 2 o'clock, he was diligently flipping patties alongside a calm, concentrated individual named Chris. In their early 20s, they possess a soothing voice and a natural inclination to assist the younger ones, often without needing to be prompted. "What keeps you here?" Zeke inquired softly, gesturing toward Alicia with a nod. Chris offered him a weary smile. "I require the hours. My sister and her child are currently staying with me. This is reliable." Zeke gave a slight nod. "Have you ever considered advancing your position?" Chris let out a soft laugh. "Management is aware of my presence, yet they show no interest. Alicia manages this place as if it belongs to her." A sudden jarring crash interrupted the dialogue. A tray of buns had been dropped by one of the new girls. Alicia marched over, her frustration palpable. "Do you believe you are prepared for this role? You struggle to even hold a loaf of bread." The girl stood still, her cheeks burning with color. "I apologize, I did not. Apologies are insufficient. It's all about speed. If you hesitate, you might miss out. Select." Zeke advanced with purpose. "Hey, perhaps take it down a notch. She is a newcomer." Alicia faced him. "You have one shift here and suddenly believe you have all the answers. Are you interested in joining her?" Zeke fixed his gaze on her. "No, I simply have no tolerance for bullies." Chris glanced upward with sudden intensity. Alicia's expression flickered, yet she withdrew, indifferent. Both of you tidy it up. Zeke assisted the girl who was named Brielle in picking up the tray. She murmured her gratitude. He gave a slight nod. You're doing great. By the close of the day, Zeke had witnessed more than enough. Alicia dashed across the floor, her heart pounding with trepidation. Individuals didn't leave due to the work itself. They left because of her. And nobody intervened. Zeke flung his apron into the bin and stepped outside, phone already gripped in his hand. Hey, he instructed his assistant, clear my schedule. I'll be at this store all week. He ended the call, gazed at the heavens, and exhaled deeply. If Alicia believed this place was hers, she was on the verge of discovering its true owner. The following morning, Zeke arrived at the back entrance a quarter of an hour ahead of schedule. The preparation team was just arriving, and the kitchen lights were still slowly coming to life. Alicia had yet to make her appearance. Chris showed up a few minutes later, clutching a worn thermos and wiping the sleep from his eyes. He paused momentarily at the sight of Zeke. He remarked, his voice softer than the day before, I didn't expect to see you back. Indeed, Zeke responded. I realized I didn't grasp the entire situation in just one shift. Chris gave a nod, then moved past him into the prep area, switching on the last row of overhead lights. Zeke trailed behind, absorbing the stillness that lingered before the impending chaos. The space appeared transformed in the absence of sound, seeming more ancient than he recalled. There were gaps where the grout should have been between the tiles. One of the fryers had a minor leak into the catch pan. No one had pointed that out during maintenance. He took a prep list from the wall and began chopping lettuce. A woman in her middle years, walking with a limp, entered from the back line and cast him a fleeting look. On the second day, Zeke remarked, You'll endure longer than many if you're already making cuts. I enjoy being proactive. She let out a brief chuckle. Are you really not on Alicia's shift again? It appears so. The woman shook her head, then began dismantling boxes of patties in silence. Zeke observed her movements, each one deliberate and refined. She moved with purpose. Nora's name tag was clearly visible. As the morning hustle began, 4 additional employees had made their way in. Not a single one of them smiled. They moved as if anticipating an impending event. Alicia strolled in, 10 minutes behind schedule, coffee in hand, and fingers dancing over her phone screen. She offered no greetings to anyone. Chris, register, she instructed, her gaze fixed. Elsewhere, Illy, the dishes are stacked up once more. Zeke complied without a word. He navigated his path to the dish pit. A pile of trays from yesterday remained untouched, waiting to be processed. The sanitizer bin was nearly empty, and the scrub brush had become so worn that it was no longer effective. He rolled up his sleeves and dove into the task at hand. After 30 minutes had passed, a young boy made his way to the sink carrying a tray filled with frozen patties. Alicia mentioned I should check with you about the location of the clean meat trays, Zeke indicated while still focused on the sink. Under the prep shelf, in the 3rd bin down, the child acknowledged, discovered one, and departed. Just 2 minutes later, Alicia appeared around the corner. Did I indicate that you were allowed to give instructions? I was merely directing him to the containers. You don't hold the reins. Focus on your own path. Zeke washed his hands and turned to her with a composed demeanor. Do you want the dishes taken care of or not? She fixed him with a gaze for a moment, then turned and left without a word. As the morning progressed, the flow began to increase. Orders were piling up. Maddie, the girl from yesterday who had left, returned this time to work the register. She appeared anxious, glancing frequently in Alicia's direction. Zeke observed her clumsily handle a drink cup, quickly offering an apology to the customer, who dismissed it with a wave. Alicia leaned in from the exhibition line. Perhaps next time try not to behave as if you're experiencing everything for the very first time. Maddie's hands quivered as she entered the next order. Zeke glanced over at Chris, who was busy bagging. How long has she been back? She came in this morning and mentioned she needed the hours. It seems she was caught off guard by being positioned at the front. Zeke examined the circumstances closely. Maddie had not received training for the register. That was evident. However, Alicia wasn't making any changes to the lineup. She simply pushed people into situations as she desired, allowing them to either thrive or flounder. A man entered with a delivery order and stood by for 5 minutes, waiting for someone to realize that it had not yet been packed. Alicia held Maddie responsible, despite the fact that the ticket had not printed properly. "I swear you all make me feel like I'm dealing with toddlers," Alicia muttered, her voice carrying enough for the line to catch her words. Zeke approached the printer, inspected the feed, and discovered the jam. He finished it and faced the line once more. He insisted that it wasn't her fault. "The printer has encountered an error." Alicia remained silent. She simply squinted and returned to Expo. 15 minutes later, the initial significant escalation occurred. A young man named Jamal, perhaps 17 years old, was busy preparing fries. He was reserved yet highly effective. At one moment, he inquired of Alicia whether he could dash to the back to fetch ice for the soda fountain. She dismissed him with a wave. As he began to leave, she erupted. "What's the reason for leaving the station? I have already submitted the batch. I was simply going to—" "You don't leave unless I give the word." Jamal paused, contemplating the weight of the moment. I hoped the machine wouldn't run out again. Refrain from responding defiantly. Zeke entered the room. He certainly was not. He was making an effort to ensure we stayed on track. Alicia focused intently on Zeke, her voice cutting through the air. "Do you really believe I require your insights on managing my space? It seems like your floor is quite apprehensive." Her jaw clenched. "Time to clock out. Your work for the day is complete." Zeke remained still. "Are you certain about that?" "I don't play games," she declared, her voice escalating in intensity. "Leave now." Chris had ceased bagging. Nora halted in the midst of her sweeping motion across the counter. Maddie appeared paralyzed behind the register. Zeke removed his hat, followed by his name tag. "I don't either." Alicia's expression changed. "What are you up to?" "I am Zeke Foster. This company is mine." Instantly there was a hush. Chris let the tongs slip from his grasp. Maddie appeared on the verge of tears once more, yet this time the cause was different. Zeke pressed on, his tone steady yet resolute. "For the past 2 days I've observed you undermine, threaten, and mishandle almost everyone present. A climate has been established where individuals feel hesitant to express themselves, reluctant to seek knowledge, and apprehensive about returning." Alicia's mouth parted, yet he raised a hand to stop her. "Actually, there's no need for an explanation. I listened to the way you addressed Brielle. I observed you overlook a malfunctioning printer and place the blame on a child. I witnessed you dismiss a 17-year-old who was attempting to maintain progress." He addressed the remaining members of the team. "Such treatment is unacceptable, regardless of the place or circumstance." He cast a glance over his shoulder at Alicia. "Your task is complete. In effect, right away." She gazed at him for a moment, then pivoted and exited in silence. Zeke stood still until the door clicked closed behind her, then turned to confront the crew. "I won't claim that it resolves everything, but it begins here." Chris gave a slow nod. Nora folded her arms, observing him with a fresh intensity. Zeke glanced over at Maddie. "What's your typical stop?" "Drive through," she murmured softly. "Allow me to guide you to that destination. Chris, could you please move to the front?" "Indeed," he remarked, already moving forward. Zeke pushed up his sleeves and moved to stand behind the line. "We're not closing our doors, but we are starting anew. Today," he captured Jamal's attention. "Your decision regarding the ice was spot on." Jamal offered a slight nod. "Thank you." The following hours were unyielding. They were missing a lead, yet the tension had dissipated. Orders remained delayed, yet individuals have begun to assist one another. Chris guided Maddie via the headset. Nora assumed control of Expo without any prior instructions. Jamal managed the fries with exceptional skill. As the afternoon wore on, the frenzy began to ease. Zeke brushed the sweat from his forehead and rested against the preparation table. The shop wasn't without its flaws, yet it possessed a unique charm. He surveyed the weary yet unwavering team. All of them had remained. That held significance. At last they found a voice that truly heard them. The following morning, Zeke showed up before dawn, this time not in uniform. He donned a simple black polo and jeans, devoid of a name tag or any form of disguise. The team received word late the night before that the store owner would be making another visit, yet uncertainty loomed over what might unfold. Alicia was gone, and the man who had stood beside them on the line was anything but an ordinary temp. As the first batch of biscuits slid into the oven, the kitchen buzzed with a calm energy, quieter than normal yet more assured. Zeke rested against the prep table, examining a clipboard filled with shift notes from the assistant GM who had been brought up to speed late last night. She requested to see him face to face prior to the morning crowd. Denise was her name, and she managed this store from a distance across town. It had been more than 3 weeks since she last set foot in the building. Upon her arrival, she surveyed her surroundings with caution before making her way to him in the dimly lit back hallway, adjacent to the walk-in. Her voice carried a soft, hushed quality. "I received your message," she said. "I had no idea it was you in the store." Zeke maintained a steady tone. "That is precisely the point." Denise nodded, acknowledging that she had been Alicia's supervisor. She had been part of our team for some time, and the figures were impressive. I didn't notice any warning signs. There was no feedback from the team regarding her conduct. She maintained strict control over everything, occasionally a bit pointed, yet mistakes are prevalent across the board at the moment. I assumed it was a matter of generations. Zeke locked his gaze with hers. Driving out 3 new hires in a single week isn't a generational issue. It's a clear indication of failure. "And you missed it," Denise swallowed, nodding slowly. "Got it." Zeke presented her with a printed roster. "This is who remains. I need the shift leads to be reassigned without delay. We will hold off on any interim promotions until we complete our evaluation. I can bring someone from Store 7 to assist today." "Negative. Our initial focus is on establishing stability here. I'll find myself on the floor once more. When someone takes the initiative, it will become evident." Denise offered a brief nod before making her way to the office. Zeke made his way back to the floor. Nora had stepped up for the morning preparations. Her silence spoke volumes as she moved with a cadence that harmonized the efforts of those around her. Jamal's skills with the fryer today were more refined than they were yesterday, monitoring timers independently. Maddie was already on the headset, while Chris juggled bagging and guiding a new trainee who had just begun that morning, a reserved teenager named Leo, just shy of 16. Zeke observed Chris leaning in, skillfully avoiding any sense of overshadowing. "There's no need to hurry. Simply align the screen and ensure the wrap is snug. Customers prioritize accuracy over speed," Chris explained, his hands unwavering. With a nod, Leo's gaze remained locked on the wrap, showcasing his focus. "Come nearer. Pay attention to the details and you'll understand." Zeke bided his time until the conversation quieted, then made his way over to the pair. "How is the training progressing?" he inquired. Chris was unfazed. "He's grasping it swiftly. He just requires the room to grow." Zeke glanced over at Leo. "It seems as though you're finding that room to breathe." Leo looked around, uncertain of how to respond. Zeke nodded, expressing that it exceeded his expectations. "Excellent. That is precisely what we desire." He proceeded along the line, inspecting the supplies. As he walked by the prep sink, Nora spoke without raising her gaze. "Never expected to find the owner right there beside the mop bucket, counting stock." He responded, not expecting to have to. She hesitated for a moment, then placed the knife she had been wielding onto the surface. "I remained because I've endured tougher situations, but that doesn't imply it was the correct choice." "You seized the moment perfectly." Zeke rested against the counter. What prevented anyone from escalating it? Earlier, individuals tend to hold back their grievances when they believe there's no audience for their words. She cleaned her hands with a swift motion. "Once you begin to listen, you'll discover more than you ever anticipated." By midday, the store had found its groove. Although there were still gaps in training and the back storage remained disorganized, the tension from the past 2 days had finally lifted. Team members engaged in more conversations, offering assistance to one another spontaneously. Zeke gathered everyone for a brief meeting after the lunch rush. He suggested we take a break for 10 minutes. Pour yourself a beverage and take a seat. A small group convened in the cozy break area tucked behind the kitchen, numbering 7 in total. Denise lingered at the periphery, watching quietly. Zeke surveyed his surroundings. I'm eager to learn about the real happenings in this store. Unfiltered, unmediated, solely you. Silence enveloped the room initially. Then Maddie took a moment to clear her throat. I nearly didn't return after my first day, she remarked. I initially believed it might have been merely a rough shift, but that wasn't the case. That was simply the way of it, Chris remarked. For weeks now we have been operating with a reduced team. When individuals leave, we're advised to simply take on the extra workload. Without support, without additional compensation, only quietude. Jamal gave a slight nod. Last month I requested additional hours. Alicia claimed I wasn't prepared, despite the fact that I've never skipped a shift. Zeke absorbed every word, allowing silence to fill the space. Nora folded her arms across her chest. Miracles are unnecessary. Respect is essential. That's all there is to it. He gazed at every one of them. Your presence has been consistent. That matters. From this point forward, I am committed to ensuring that this space functions for you as it should. He retrieved a creased piece of paper from his back pocket. Today marks the beginning of these changes. Initially, cross-training is a choice, not a requirement. If you feel at ease in one position, we will maintain that arrangement until you request additional opportunities. Additionally, whenever you train someone for over 2 shifts, ensure you record it on the sheet. A bonus has been introduced for that. Additionally, you have the option to express your concerns without revealing your identity. Those are directed right to my office. He presented the paper to Chris, who circulated it among the group. Finally, I will be promoting someone to the position of temporary shift lead by the end of the day. However, it won't be an individual who raises their voice. It will be an individual who truly pays attention. Chris looked up, taken aback. Zeke remained silent thereafter. He rose, acknowledged Denise with a nod, and made his way back into the kitchen. The afternoon unfolded with greater ease. Leo managed the entire order on his own, without any assistance. Maddie managed a challenging customer with unwavering composure. Jamal shouted as the fryer oil began to bubble, receiving gratitude rather than being overlooked. As the afternoon waned, Zeke discreetly beckoned Chris to the periphery of the walk-in. Are you prepared to step into a leadership role? Chris opened his eyes wide. You're already fulfilling the role. It seems fitting to obtain the title. Absolutely, I can. Support will be provided. I won't be sending you in alone. Chris glanced over his shoulder at the line, then gave a nod of acknowledgement. Understood. Zeke gave his shoulder a firm clap. Excellent. Your journey begins tomorrow. He pivoted back to the kitchen, mentally cataloging tasks for the evening shift ahead. Numerous issues remained to be addressed: scheduling gaps, malfunctioning equipment, and overlooked deliveries. Yet the foundation existed not due to his efforts, but because they chose to remain. At last, they were receiving the attention they deserved. Zeke made his way back to the store 2 days later, this time without any disguise, but wearing the same attire he had donned while working the line. No formal attire, no paperwork in hand, just a casual polo and jeans. He slipped through the back entrance with a hushed grace. The team had been operating in Alicia's absence, and Chris had completed his first full shift as acting lead the night before. Zeke had kept his plans to himself, not revealing to anyone that he would be arriving today. He aimed to witness the ripple effects without his presence altering the atmosphere. The back kitchen sparkled, more pristine than it had been throughout the week. The malfunctioning fryer had been marked correctly, a maintenance tag securely fastened through the power switch. The preparation table featured clearly labeled bins, and a new rotation log had been initiated by someone. Zeke examined it closely. The morning entries bore Jamal's handwriting. He advanced to the front. The line at the register was short, yet it advanced with determination. Maddie managed the headset, articulating her words with clarity and composure. Leo, in the midst of his learning journey, stood behind her with his own headset, absorbing the sounds but not yet engaged with the live orders. Chris navigated the expo line, announcing the bag orders with a calm assurance. Zeke moved aside to let a customer enter. The greeting was a standard welcome. "We'll be right with you." Yet it felt sincere. He observed the subtle exchanges between Maddie and Chris, the careful maneuver of Leo as he sidestepped to keep the drink station clear, and the shout from Jamal at the back when the hash browns were running low. The kitchen may not have been flawless, yet it operated seamlessly as a cohesive unit. Denise made her entrance 10 minutes later. She entered without her typical defensive stance. With a keen eye, she surveyed the room before making her way directly to Zeke. "It's holding," she remarked. The first dinner rush without Alicia unfolded more seamlessly than any we've experienced. In recent weeks, Chris remained an hour longer to assist with the closing duties. Zeke focused intently on the line. There was no obligation for him to do so. Has he recorded it? He never requested to. Denise nodded, indicating that it was not the same thing. Zeke turned toward her and said, "I'll add it to payroll. We're moving, beyond mere repairs. I envision a complete transformation of this store, with a revamped hiring process and a fresh approach to onboarding. Everyone must shadow for a minimum of 2 complete shifts before being assigned to a station." Denise took a moment to stop and reflect. "Are you looking for that specifically for this store, or do you want it to apply across the entire chain?" Zeke hesitated before responding. He strolled toward the back office, gesturing for her to come along. Within the confines of the room, he gently shut the door behind them. He mentioned that he owns 5 stores. "If this occurred here, it's taking place elsewhere. I simply overlooked it." Denise took a seat. "Confidence is placed in your leaders. That's not incorrect. He mentioned that I created space. My father didn't create this chain from behind a desk." He found himself on the floor each week. He was aware of their identities. Denise cast her gaze downward for a brief moment before lifting it once more. "Then we bring that back," Zeke acknowledged with a single nod. "Beginning with this." He retrieved a folder from the depths of the desk's bottom drawer. Within were documented staff records, notes from the previous 3 days, and a compilation of suggested changes. "We are revising compensation for our staff who have undergone cross-training. Anyone who consistently reports on several stations receives a salary increase, not just a bonus. An increase in salary." Denise perused the document. "That will impact the budget. We revise the budget, not the individuals." She remained silent. A quarterly staff forum is also in the works. No supervisors, only team members. They speak, we hear, we respond. Denise inclined her body, eager and attentive. "What is the status of Alicia's replacement?" Zeke shook his head in disbelief. "We're taking our time with it. Chris is currently following a temporary lead track. We provide him with encouragement, not merely assignments." Denise paused, uncertainty flickering in her mind. "Do you believe he can maintain it over the long haul?" "I believe he is already engaged in it. Subtle guidance endures. I prefer to develop that approach instead of bringing in another enforcer who has a track record of numbers but lacks interpersonal skills." She reclined. "All right." Zeke wrapped his fingers against the folder. "You'll take the lead, but I'd like to receive updates every week. It's not about the figures, but the individuals, who is rising to the occasion, who is facing challenges, and who requires assistance before reaching their breaking point." Denise gave a subtle nod. "Got it." Zeke rose to his feet and swung the door open. The familiar sounds of the kitchen filled the air once more. Orders are being called out, timers are beeping, and laughter lingers softly in the background. They stepped outside side by side. Chris diligently replenished the sauces at the condiment station. His gaze lifted at the sight of Zeke. Zeke inquired if you had a moment. Chris cleaned his hands and stepped over to join him in the side hallway. "Are you managing all right?" Zeke inquired. Chris offered a brief nod. "It's more bustling than I anticipated, yet there's a wonderful sense of camaraderie among everyone. That simplifies things." Zeke rested against the wall. "You've achieved something far beyond a fleeting designation. I wish to formalize it. Lead shift with complete compensation and training opportunities." Chris opened his eyes wide. "You mean it? Do you really believe I'm joking about this?" Chris cast a glance back toward the kitchen. I never envisioned myself as the one leading the way. Zeke stated that you don't hold the reins. You're the person others rely on. That requires more effort to obtain. Chris gave a slow nod. Sure thing, I'll take care of it. Excellent. If you ever find yourself overwhelmed and feeling isolated, don't hesitate to speak up. Let go of what isn't necessary. Chris offered a faint smile. I suppose the same applies. To you. Zeke arched an eyebrow. Just. They made their way back to the forefront. Nora had just punched in for the afternoon shift. She glided forward with the same measured rhythm, yet there was an understated change in her demeanor. She acknowledged Jamal with a soft, "You good?" and cast a quick look at the friars before immersing herself in preparation. Zeke intercepted her as she headed toward the sink. "Have you ever considered taking charge of training?" She regarded him intently. "Are you making an offer? I'm inquiring." She cleaned her hands, then gave a nod. "If you're creating something fresh, I'm here to help mold it. You have just accomplished that." By 4 o'clock, the store was operating with intention, not routine. Gaps remained evident. Zeke noticed a missing inventory tag on one bin, and there was a slight leak in the drink machine. Yet the distinction lay in the way individuals navigated their surroundings. They took the initiative to address the issues themselves. They observed, engaged, expressed. Zeke ventured outside to catch a breath of fresh air. The sky was starting to glow with shades of orange. He observed the delivery driver arrive, scrutinizing the invoice on his clipboard before stepping inside. No one rushed out to stop him in a flurry. The system was functioning properly. A message from his assistant made his phone vibrate. Zeke contemplated for a moment before responding, "Should I arrange a visit to the store for next?" "No, I will handle it on my own." He tucked the phone away in his pocket and cast a glance back. Through the window, Maddie guided Leo through the headset settings with careful precision. Chris was meticulously reviewing the schedule alongside Denise. Jamal took the initiative to reset the timers on his own. Zeke let out a slow breath. This was more than just a single store preserved. It marked the beginning of recalling the essence of their enterprise, one that thrived not on fear, a connection that flourished when you genuinely took the time to notice others.